you're a business owner that's wondering about general liability coverage, this is going to be the video for you. Today, I am going to be sharing some of my experience and trying to simplify a general liability policy for you business owners out there. Maybe this is your first business and you're just getting started, or maybe you're definitely a veteran, but you're looking to get some more information. I'm sure that there's going to be a little bit of everything in this video for you guys. So my name is Enbal. I've been an insurance broker for the past 5 years. I've been mostly working with businesses, but I have dabbled in a little bit of everything until I found what I'm really passionate about, and that's working with business owners. So the first thing that I like to say to any one of my clients when we first start working together is that a general liability policy is going to cover you for property damage or bodily injury caused by you to a third party. General liability policy would usually have some sort of accident trigger to it, something that was definitely not on purpose, but has happened within the course of you doing business with someone else. So whether you're a dentist and someone trips and falls because the carpet wasn't laid correctly, or you're a contractor that one of your guys accidentally damaged an extra wall or property for a homeowner that you're working with. That is kind of like the most simple way that I like to explain. And from this point, you can kind of get a little bit more broad on what other coverages you're going to need. So general liability is definitely going to be your basics and what you really want to start off with, and what is most likely going to even be required for you to be able to have a Google account or take out a lease or get into contracts with other people. They're going to require you to have a general liability policy. So now that we know a little bit about the basic, what is a general liability policy, let's talk about how you might be able to acquire a policy like this. So generally speaking, there are going to be two ways. You can either go directly with the carrier. So let's say you want to do an online quote or work with a local broker that we usually refer to as a captive broker or a captive agent, and someone that works with only one type of insurance company, and then you go directly with that. So that could be your local State Farm office, a farmer's agent, Allstate, companies like that where you're working directly with the agent that represents that insurance company. Or you can just go directly. So if you have a very small business, or you're really just getting started and you want the most simple of things, you can just go online and get yourself a quote. So you have companies like Next Insurance or even Liberty Mutual Travelers, where you can go online, get yourself a quote directly from the insurance company, and that's going to be pretty much that. Now, the other side of things is working with a broker. So just like a broker and any other thing, a broker will have access to different insurance companies. They will take your information, submit it to the different carriers, and bring back the best option. I personally, what I like to do is maybe present one or two options. I tend to go with the least expensive option, but if there are significant coverage differences between two quotes that I got, I will most likely present both, and then we can kind of have a discussion about which one might be the best option for this specific business. So yeah, those are generally the two ways that you can get a general liability policy. Now, when looking at a general liability policy, one thing that I think is extremely overlooked are your policy exclusions. So yes, a general liability policy will cover those accidents, those things that you never expected or you never wanted to happen, and they're not going to obviously cover you if you set something on fire on purpose. But if you work in a house and accidentally something got on fire, then the general liability should cover that. What is extremely overlooked most of the time are your policy exclusions. So those are the specific scenarios that are in your policy that if that happens, you're not going to have coverage. One of the exclusions that I feel is extremely overlooked by businesses is sometimes you have a water exclusion on your policy. Sometimes you have a pollution exclusion on your policy. So if you cause a fire and there's any smoke, there's not going to be any coverage for that. So there are different types of exclusions, and I would just like to encourage you guys to have a conversation with your agent or broker, or really if you're doing it on your own, read through those at least one time when you get your policy, so that way you can understand what are the possible risks and what are the possible scenarios that could possibly happen within your business that you're not going to be covered for. So I think taking a look at the exclusions is going to be extremely important. General liability policy might not always just be a general liability policies. It is extremely common to have some sort of combination between the general liability and a property policy. So in that case, sometimes it's referred to as a business owner's policy or a BOP. Sometimes it's called a package policy, depending on who you work with. Those policies are going to include your general liability, so like we said, body injury and property damage, and property, which is your own property. So this is where you're going to see coverage for business personal property, maybe tenant improvement. So let's say, you have a space and you put in things that are permanently attached to the space and you're not going to be able to take with you. That is going to be included on your property portion. So with every property policy, if you have a small business, if you are a one location restaurant, if you are more in that smaller to medium-sized business, I would definitely recommend always considering a property and liability package. It's usually the less expensive option, and then it gives you so much more for your money. There are also going to be a lot of endorsements usually on these packages where you can have coverage for spoilage or even some of the equipment. So it just depends on your specific business, and I would say generally speaking, if you can opt into a package versus just a monoline standalone general liability policy, I will mostly recommend the package option. Now, you might have a larger business. Let's say you're a construction company and you have 30 employees, for example. Package might not be an option. It can still be an option, especially if you look at carriers that are more catered towards that medium, even large business in construction space. So you can definitely find package options, but those are going to be almost like having two policies stuck together in one. So if you have 30, 50, 100 employees, you might have to go the standalone liability and then standalone property route. But that's when working with a broker is extremely important. So that way they can actually give you the specific recommendations and kind of lay out what those options look like. So generally speaking, you have usually two options for a general liability policy, either standalone or as a package with some property in there. I usually like the property side more. Liability is going to be the basic of the basics. That's the first thing that you want to start with, and it can get pretty complex whether you're manufacturing a product or whether you have a little store or you're a construction company. So there's definitely different scenarios, but if you're looking for the bottom line of what a general liability policy covers you, it's going to be that body injury, property damage, and that's what you should remember moving forward. So if you have any specific concerns about any type of coverage, like what happens if someone has financial loss, or what happens if there's an exclusion that doesn't cover that, what happens if I get sued from one of my employees. All of those scenarios are going to fall under different lines of coverage. And as part of this YouTube channel, I am definitely plan on slowly picking up all of those little lines of coverage so that way you have a resource for everything. But if there's anything specific that you guys are interested that can be relevant for right now, my contact information is below, so you can always reach out to me or just put it in the comments and I can be sure to make a video that's more specific to that subject next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.